Chris dug out my eyes and cut my flesh to avenge his enemy's daughter, causing the system to deem my mission a failure. As I lay dying, he asked if I regretted. I said the biggest regret of my life was showing him mercy. Later, when the mission restarted, I treated him with contempt, but he desperately wanted to win me back. If you want to show mercy, show it to the end. Love me once more, and I will not let you down. I pulled away and said, it's too late. In the dark warehouse, I was awakened by a bucket of cold water. Under the flickering fluorescent lights, I saw Chris glaring down at me, questioning if I was the one who hurt Fiona's eyes. I smiled, sat up against the wall, and took a deep breath before asking, don't you already have the answer in your heart? He grabbed my chin and demanded to hear my answer, his face infuriated. Suddenly, he leaned in, and I could see the progress bar above his head. The number that had almost been full was now at 0. Instead of answering his question, I pleaded, Chris, please stop. Angrily, he asked if I meant stopping seeking revenge for myself or for Eric. Then, without another word, he slapped me viciously across the face. With intense anger in his eyes, he said, at this point, instead of pleading for yourself, you're still thinking about him. If you care for him so much, go die with him. He turned away, saying, I hate her eyes. And so, they gouged out my eyes. The pain was excruciating. I've always feared pain since I was young, curled up on the ground screaming in agony, until I passed out from the pain, only to be revived by another splash of cold water. They used a knife to cut my flesh inch by inch. As I neared death, Chris coldly asked if I regretted. Trembling, I confessed, the biggest regret of my life is showing you mercy. As those words left my lips, a white light flashed before me. The dim warehouse, the pungent smell of blood, and Chris's contorted face due to anger all disappeared. Host, the mission has failed. In a room filled with futuristic technology, the system asked me cautiously, are you okay? I sat there blankly for a while, slowly moving my limbs. I'm fine, I replied stiffly. Seeing me lost in thought, the system sighed and reassured me, Host, don't be too upset. He was just a character to conquer. I repeated quietly, but I failed the mission. I was supposed to be a conqueror. Chris was my first target, and the mission was to prevent him from becoming a villain. I still remember the harsh winter, when I rescued the severely wounded Chris from the heavy snow. From then on, I protected him, supported him, and nurtured him from an inexperienced wolf cub into a ferocious beast that could bite. Host, don't be too sad. This interdimensional mission is inherently challenging. Rest assured, I will contact headquarters to send experienced conquerors. Take a break and prepare for the next dimension. I responded hoarsely, yes. Showing mercy is a grave mistake. I've learned from the failure of the first dimension. In subsequent missions, I showed no mercy to the antagonists, making it much easier to complete tasks after the ordeal with Chris. It seemed like I was gradually breaking free from Chris's shadow. When I completed the 7th dimension and emerged, instead of being teleported, the system hesitated and said, Host, there's some bad news. Regarding Chris, headquarters said to give it another try. As the saying goes, if you fall, stand up from where you fell. Headquarters just wants you to try again. If you fail once more, this dimension will be destroyed. It paused, then added, if you're really afraid. I closed my eyes and replied, okay. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself in a car. Flakes of snow were swirling outside, and the windows were fogged up to keep out the cold. The driver abruptly braked, looking alarmed. Selena, I think we hit someone. In the vast expanse of white snow, a stark black figure stood out. Chris was curled up in the snow, covered in blood. Only his eyes, deep and menacing, captured me without fail. Before me, 3 other conquerors had come to this world, but each had failed. They mentioned Chris's escalating sadistic tendencies. Host, be careful. Selena, should we take him to the hospital? He looks severely injured. The system and the driver both spoke up. I leaned back, averted my gaze from his face, and calmly said, drive on. The driver hesitated. What? The last time, I plucked Chris from the snow. In the following days, I supported him and urged him to stand up and not be afraid. But this time, I wanted him to know that without me, Chris was nothing. Drive on. If he dares to stop us, just plow through. Chris didn't try to stop us. In the rearview mirror, I watched as his silhouette faded into the distance, eventually becoming an inconspicuous black dot. This time, I chose not to save him, and he didn't return home with me. The car stopped in front of a mansion, with numerous servants and guards milling about, exuding luxury. The Smiths were wealthy and owned an entire mansion in the bustling capital. Disguised as the Smith's daughter, I was showered with endless favor. For my first mission, the agency had set me up perfectly. But alas, the good hand I had was played to ruin. Despite my efforts to provide Chris with everything he needed, he ended up taking advantage of the Smiths, leading to their downfall and my demise. Just entered the door, my dad's voice came with a smile. Selena, your brother is back in the country today. The male lead of this plot, Eric, is my brother, not by blood, but he loves me dearly. Later, to save me, he was killed by Chris. I smiled and said, great. I haven't seen Eric in years. Dad got up and said, he should be home soon. I have things to do at the company. So you stay at home and wait for your brother. I obediently nodded, okay. At 4 in the afternoon, the gates of the manor opened, but my smile froze when I saw the man covered in wounds following Eric. If it's not Chris, who could it be? Last time, I tried to cozy up to Chris to get to him, but later, I found out that even if I didn't bring him back, he would have found a way to infiltrate the Smiths. My attempts to please him were probably a big joke to Chris. How was he feeling, watching my every move? He must be internally mocking my foolishness. I redirected my gaze and casually guided Eric, subtly pushing Chris aside. You must be tired after returning, Eric. Why don't you rest first? Eric, gentle as always, pulled Chris over. I accidentally bumped into him on the way. Could you have the family doctor take a look at him? I asked coldly. Why not take him to the hospital? It's out of the way to go to the hospital, and I'm a bit tired. Eric rubbed his forehead wearily. It's a small matter, Selena. Thank you for your trouble. Indeed a small matter. I pointed to a servant. Take him to the guest room. Have the family doctor see him, and then send him out. Don't let anyone stay overnight. I escorted Eric back to his room and exchanged a few words. Throughout, I didn't look Chris in the eye, but his gaze remained on me. I went back to my room, changed clothes, and prepared for the tasks ahead. An hour later, I opened the door and went downstairs. Unexpectedly, as I reached the stairs, I saw a lean figure standing in the doorway against the light. Chris was dressed in a servant's clothes too big for him. He was slender, but stood with a straight back. Hearing footsteps, he slowly lifted his head. His long hair covered his eyes, and his lips were pursed tightly. I frowned. Why are you still here? The maid hesitated and said, we've followed your orders strictly. After giving him medicine, we planned to send him away, but he insisted on staying to thank you in person. Not necessary, I said expressionlessly. Are the cats and dogs the Smiths usually rescue not enough? If they all come to thank me, I'd be overwhelmed. If there's nothing else, then go. This last sentence was directed at Chris. The next moment, he took a few steps towards me, his dark eyes locked onto mine firmly. Remembering his violent actions last time, I instinctively stepped back. Seeing my reaction, Chris trembled slightly and hoarsely said, Selena, don't be afraid of me. My expression changed. What did you call me? Before he could say more, I slapped him hard across the face. The slap was strong, leaving Chris's face red. I gripped the banister and said coldly, what do you think you are? How dare you address me like that? Last time, I tried so hard to please him. I practically had to beg for him to call my name reluctantly. But now, when I just arrived, at this moment, he should be resistant to contact with me. Did my different attitude cause a different effect? I looked at him suspiciously, and Chris stared back at me straight in the eye. With my disapproving gaze on him, he immediately lowered his head. I'm sorry, I overstepped. I'm just grateful for your life-saving grace, and felt familiar, so I spoke rashly. I sneered. Would Chris feel grateful? That's a big joke. Last time, my brother was so good to him, nurturing him with all his might, and in the end, he didn't even leave a complete body for him. The system, silent for a long time, finally spoke up. Host, with your harsh attitude toward him, aren't you afraid he'll turn dark? I sneered. Last time, we were both wrong. Chris is not a person, he's a wolf. Being nice to this beast is useless. You have to strike fear into him. I walked slowly down the stairs. Chris followed hesitantly behind me. When we reached the door, I turned and extended an invitation to him. You said you were grateful to me, so show some sincerity. I'm about to do something shady, and I need your help. Are you willing? Chris's gaze shifted from his pale neck to my face. It seemed strangely familiar, but before I could dwell on it, he nodded slowly. Okay. The car stopped at the hotel entrance. Chris's expression turned strange when he saw the bright sign. I glanced at him and asked coolly, what are you thinking? He withdrew his gaze, gave a faint smile, and said, nothing. I asked the driver and bodyguards to wait at the entrance and took Chris inside. He remained silent the entire way. It wasn't until we entered the room and he saw Fiona, blindfolded and bound to the head of the bed, that his expression finally changed. I observed his reaction and suddenly asked, do you know her? Chris pursed his lips, hesitated, and shook his head. I don't. I leaned on the sofa and smiled. Of course he didn't know her. The last time they met, it was all thanks to me. But I knew her. It was Fiona, who blackmailed Eric with intimate photos, forcing him to promise to marry her. But on the wedding night, She climbed into Chris's bed and even handed over the company's secrets. She caused Eric to go bankrupt, and both Eric and I had fallen so low. Perhaps when Fiona got cancer and knew she didn't have long to live, she framed me by damaging her own eyes. Our conversation caught Fiona's attention. She knelt at the head of the bed, tears streaming down her face. "Who are you? Why did you kidnap me?" I put away my mocking smile, approached the bed calmly. "Don't use kidnap. Wasn't it you who opened the door to this room and walked in on your own?" Fiona turned pale and tried to explain, "But I didn't know it was you. I thought it was Eric." I sneered. "My brother wouldn't even look at a woman like you." I then turned to Chris. Strangely, he stared at me with an even weirder look, as if trying to see through me. Without much thought, I grabbed a knife from the cabinet and threw it at his feet. "If you want to thank me, bring me her tongue," I said with a cruel smile, unable to stand her voice. "Go on, cut it out for me, will you?" Chris stared at me steadily. I grinned at him. "What's the matter? Can't do it." My smile felt genuinely wicked. The last time we confronted each other, he was willing to kill me to protect Fiona. Now, I wanted him to harm her himself, to cut out her tongue and gouge out her eyes, to make sure she couldn't slander us anymore. If Chris falling for Fiona was inevitable, I looked forward to seeing the expression on his face when he realized he had hurt the woman he loved with his own hands. After a long pause, Chris shook his head slightly and picked up the knife, examining it carefully in his hand. It was like he was assessing the knife, yet also scrutinizing his own hand. Furrowing my brows, I asked, "If it's not her, then why hesitate?" Suddenly, Chris looked up, smiling at me. I had to admit he was indeed good-looking, and that smile was momentarily captivating. But before I could react, a piercing scream echoed through the room. At lightning speed, Chris plunged the knife into Fiona's mouth. My pupils involuntarily constricted. He actually did it, and he did it so decisively. Fresh blood splattered on his face. His hair was sticky and tangled, revealing his deep, pitch-black eyes. Turning his head slowly, feeling the warmth of the blood, he even chuckled. He asked me, "Selena, are you satisfied now?" I couldn't help but glance at Fiona. Tears mixed with blood dripped onto the bedsheets, her face pale with agony, only able to make faint gasping sounds. "Not satisfied?" Chris asked again. Then, he slowly rotated his wrist, the knife following the curve, grinding repeatedly in Fiona's mouth. He was indeed ruthless. His methods of torture were despicable. I took a deep breath and averted my gaze. "That's enough." In the elevator, Chris stood behind me with his head hanging low. Neither of us spoke, the atmosphere tense. I scrutinized him through the mirror in the elevator. Head down, expression unreadable. Was he afraid? This Chris hadn't been through the dark events of the past. Had he not completely turned to darkness yet? The elevator door opened with a ding. Suddenly, Chris looked up and said something. Stepping out of the elevator, I asked coldly, "What did you say?" He looked me in the eye. "Selena, are you really not going to kill her?" "What?" I replied. Chris continued, "She's heard your voice. If we don't kill her, it will be trouble." Anger surged through me, and without thinking, I slapped him across the face. "What right do you have to comment on what I do? With Eric's power, do you think she can threaten us?" Chris immediately lowered his head. While I wanted Fiona dead, I absolutely couldn't do it in Chris's presence. I couldn't leave any potential stain that could affect Eric. I sneered, without even looking back, warning Chris, "Whether it's her or anyone else, don't try to challenge Eric. Otherwise, I will rip his claws out one by one." Leaving the hotel, dusk had already fallen. I got into the car, glanced arrogantly at Chris, and said, "A wild dog should know its place. I'm going home. Don't follow me anymore." With that, I left. In the rearview mirror, I could see Chris, neck stretched out, watching me until I became just a tiny dot, disappearing into the distance. Back at Eric's house, the system finally spoke up. "Host, are you really going to leave him be?" Drying my hair, tiptoeing in my slippers, I casually replied, "Starting tonight, there will be a severe storm for the next 3 days." I chuckled lightly. 3 days of rain. I wonder if it will wash away Chris's self-righteousness. The system thought I was joking, but little did it know, 3 full days later, I nonchalantly instructed the butler, "Go and find that beggar I brought here last time." The butler and maid exchanged a glance, hesitant to speak. The butler finally said, "Miss, that beggar." "What? He's right outside." I furrowed my brows slightly. "When did he follow us?" The butler took a deep breath. "He followed us 3 days ago, and since Miss, you seem to dislike him, we decided not to tell you for these 3 days." I suddenly lost my appetite for breakfast. Was Chris haunting me like a ghost? Out of all the wealthy people, why did he target my family? On an early autumn day, with furry slippers on my feet and no coat, I hurriedly ran to the entrance of the villa. Of course I'm not worried about him. Just want to enjoy his embarrassment right now. I hadn't even gotten close but I saw something huddled at the door from afar. It was indeed Chris, but I had never seen him in such a desperate state before, looking exactly like a wild dog. I opened the door, walked over to him, and nudged him with the tip of my slipper. Still alive. I could hear his faint breathing under my feet. It took a long time before Chris struggled to lift his eyelids and glanced at me. It was a long look. His gaze swept across my face, then settled on my slender ankles exposed without a coat. Finally, it fixed on my bare, delicate ankle out in the open. After a while, he struggled to lift his hand, covering my ankle with his sleeve. In a hoarse and strenuous voice, he said, "It's cold outside. Don't catch a cold." Chris didn't wake up until he had been lying there for a whole day. News of this reached Eric's ears. Naturally, his personality wouldn't suspect Chris of having ulterior motives. Instead, he decided to let him stay at Eric's house. When I found out, I was livid. Eric jokingly patted my shoulder and said, "This little beggar seems to connect with you. Brother is busy with company matters and doesn't have time to accompany you. Keeping him as a companion isn't a bad idea. We won't even miss a meal with him around." I rolled my eyes. You know what? Before I could finish, Chris had already changed his clothes and walked out. I immediately interrupted my conversation with my brother. Eric didn't notice anything wrong, raised his hand and ruffled my hair. "All right, I'm leaving." I watched him leave. Just as I turned around, I met Chris's obscure gaze. He stared at my head for a full 5 seconds. "What are you looking at?" I glared at him and said coldly, "Just because my brother lets you stay doesn't mean I'll accept you. You're not eligible to be with me." Chris lowered his head slightly. "I know." I continued to threaten, "Starting tomorrow, you must pick me up from school every day, wait at the school gate, and not go anywhere else, understand?" "Okay, and if I hear you call my name again, I will cut out your tongue, just like I did to Fiona." "Got it." I nodded in satisfaction. "All right, you can go now." But he didn't move. Instead, his gaze fell on the top of my head again, hesitating to speak. "Miss, there's a bug on your head." "What?" My face instantly changed color. Suppressing the urge to scream, I stood still, pointing at Chris and ordered, "What are you standing there for? Get it off me." Whether it was my imagination or not, I saw a hint of a sly smile in his eyes. As soon as I spoke, Chris suddenly leaned in. He had just taken a shower and applied medicine, giving off a faint medicinal scent. He was very close to me, and I suddenly realized that, despite looking so skinny, he was actually quite tall. This height, as he approached me, completely enveloped me. His hand landed on top of my head. It took a while, too long for my liking. "Are you done?" "It's just a bug." "Why is it taking this long?" "Don't move, Selena, it's still moving." "I can't catch it," Chris reminded me. His warm breath fell on my head. My body instantly stiffened, feeling like my hands and feet were not my own. Chris suddenly smiled. I rolled my eyes in annoyance. "What are you smiling about now?" "Selena, I remembered a little kitten I once raised. She didn't let me close at first, always showing her claws at me, thinking she could scare me. But in my eyes, the fluffy little kitten was even more adorable, with a unique charm." I frowned, about to think deeply, but he suddenly raised his hand, rubbed my head hard, as if stamping something, or trying to cover something up. I covered my head, took 3 steps back. "Stop it. What gives you the right to rub my head?" He didn't get angry, and said very casually, "Sorry, couldn't help it." I kicked him twice, and sent him to clean the guest room. As he left, the system's worried voice rang out, "Host, why are you acting foolishly? Chris is clearly flirting with you, and you're even playing along." I expressionlessly ran my fingers through my hair. Am I foolish? Does he really think I don't know? Who is the hunter, who is the hunted, will only be known in the end. In this dimension, I was still a college student, attending a prestigious academy. The last time, I had my father push Chris into this school as well. As a result, he got to know many rich kids, laying a solid foundation for his future entrepreneurship. But this time, I will not give him that opportunity again. Arriving at the school gates, I said coldly, "Just wait for me here until I finish school. Don't go anywhere." He obediently agreed. Got it. Afraid of him going behind my back, I even secretly had someone monitor him. But it turns out, I was overthinking it. He's not yet ready to go against me, clearly lacking that courage. After school that afternoon, Chris was still standing in the same place as in the morning, staring blankly ahead. It wasn't until my figure appeared at the school gate that his face regained a human-like expression. I abruptly stopped in my tracks, a strange feeling rising in my heart. A barely perceptible smile appeared on his face, and he started walking towards me. At that moment, a male voice came from behind me, "Selena." Confused, I turned my head and saw Bruce, walking towards me with a smile. "My grandfather is hosting a birthday banquet this Saturday. I need a date. Would you like to come?" I was about to refuse impatiently, but out of the corner of my eye, I saw Chris running towards me urgently. Sure, I smiled. Saturday, right? I'll wait for you to pick me up. Bruce walked away happily. On the other hand, Chris's gaze suddenly darkened. I ignored him, walking past him as if I hadn't seen him, even kindly asking him, "What did you think of that guy just now?" I continued to laugh, feeling good. He invited me to be his companion for the banquet. What does it mean for our status and class to receive such an invitation? We both understood each other without speaking a word. Chris raised his head and looked at me steadily. I pretended not to notice and chuckled. This is high society, the strong uniting to give birth to even stronger existence. You, a little beggar, will never understand. Only you, Chris. Treat Fiona like a treasure. After that, Chris seemed to be much quieter. On Saturday, I got dressed early and waited at home for Bruce to pick me up. Chris appeared silently behind me. I glanced at him expressionlessly and said, "With your status, you are not qualified to attend such an occasion. You should not follow along." He pursed his lips and asked me, "If I can't go, can Bruce go?" I frowned. "What right do you have to compare yourself to him?" Chris looked at me, his gaze sticky, as if deeply hurt. "Miss, he doesn't like you." I laughed. "Do you like me? But does your liking matter?" Last time, Chris also said that he liked me. When he was drunk, he held me and said he liked me very much. But does it matter? His affection is not worth mentioning. Just then, Bruce's car arrived at his house. However, it was not Bruce who got out of the car, but his servant. "Selena, Bruce broke his leg. The doctor said he had to lie in bed for 3 months. So he won't be able to accompany you to the banquet today." "It's okay." I coldly chuckled, picked up my skirt, and got into the car alone. Chris silently watched as I walked away. I felt nothing looking at his sad eyes. Previously, it was always me staring at his back. Later in the party, during the dance section, my planned dance partner broke his leg and couldn't make it. So, I was the only one left alone among all the girls present. The eyes of those around me looked at me. Though they didn't say anything, their mocking glances were clear. I put down my glass expressionlessly, ready to leave the banquet hall. Suddenly, there was a commotion near the door. I frowned, feeling a strong sense of foreboding. Some curious people looked towards the door. "What's going on?" I heard there's a returnee investor who's been in the limelight these past 2 years, and now he came uninvited. Really? Isn't he never seen in public? Before I knew it, I saw everyone looking in the direction where a man was walking towards me with a calm stride. My pupils shrank suddenly. The man stood in front of me, extending his hand and inviting, "Selena, may I have the honor of a dance with you?" I looked at him coldly, moving my gaze from his face to his slender hand. I sneered, "Are you enjoying this dramatic scenario?" Chris smiled at me. "I thought you'd like it, Selena." I suddenly grabbed his arm tightly, almost tearing him apart with my strength. But he embraced my waist and led me onto the dance floor. We danced gracefully to the music, appearing harmonious to others, but only I knew, as I looked into his eyes, they were full of hatred. Almost involuntarily, I said, "Chris, you don't even want to pretend anymore, do you?" The music started to quicken. Chris's grip around my waist tightened. I gazed coldly at him. "So, you recognize me now?" He smirked. "When? At first sight, Selena. I know you too well." I couldn't help but laugh. So, he had known I was back long ago. Before my return, he had climbed even higher than the Smiths, deliberately pretending to be weak and pitiful to win my sympathy. My hand touched his protruding bones, and through gritted teeth I said, "Chris, it must have been hard for you to act this way just to play this part with me." "Not hard, Selena. I'm happy that you're back. More important than anything else. Stop pretending to disgust me." I turned around and leaned back into his arms, looking at him disdainfully. Chris didn't speak, just raised his hand, gently brushing away the strands of hair from my forehead. Suddenly, a memory struck me and my face turned ugly. "So, you remember everything, don't you?" "You know everything. I can say that." "And Fiona." I thought of the ruthless blow he had dealt with her. Chris continued to smile at me with darkening eyes. "Selena, I know more than you think." Chris was open about everything with me. Every question I asked, he answered. For example, after I died, he found out that Fiona had framed me. The day after confirming the truth, he took care of Fiona himself. He didn't hate me, just feared Eric taking me away. His love was twisted and it was hard for me to accept. Looking into his wolf-like eyes, I took a deep breath and asked him, "So, what did you do with Fiona this time?" Chris smiled lightly, as if speaking of something inconsequential. "Killing her would be too easy. Selena, since you hate her, I have 1,000 ways to torment her. Make her wish she were dead." As the music ended, I slapped Chris hard and ran away. Chris's eyes darkened as he chased after me. We ran to the underground parking lot, and he hugged me, his voice trembling. "Selena, where do you want to go? Can't you stay by my side? I struggled. Are you out of your mind? Chris sighed. I know you still blame me, but the world has rebooted, hasn't it? This time, I didn't harm Eric, and I avenged Fiona for you. I still have money now. I can give you everything you want, Selena. Can't we start over and be together properly? I sneered repeatedly. Chris, there is absolutely no way I would accept you unless you die. After the dance, for a long time, I locked myself at home and refused to see anyone, looking like I was deeply affected by something. The system advised me, host, why bother? Haven't you already guessed? I lay on the bed, eating oranges, swinging my legs. Yeah. System, then what are you waiting for? It paused. Half a minute later, it replied to me, 90%. You see, he got rid of Fiona for me, but his conquest value still fell short. You don't understand. So host, what are you waiting for? Waiting for a chance to break the ice. As soon as I finished speaking, the servant knocked on my door. Miss, Eric said there are guests at home and asked you to tidy up and come out to meet them. Okay, I'll go now. I put on my pajamas, let my hair down, and walked barefoot downstairs. Eric frowned helplessly when he saw me like this. Selena, what are you doing? The guests are still here. Go back and change into proper clothing. I languidly replied. As I turned my back to him, his slender figure suddenly turned around, locking eyes with me accurately. I furrowed my brows, glared at him, and yawned. Okay, got it. Unexpectedly, as soon as I turned around, a warm hug came from behind. Chris just picked me up. The floor was cold, and he spoke gently. Miss, I'll carry you back. Eric looked at the two of us in surprise, then smiled. I didn't expect Mr. Chris to get along so well with my sister. Since that's the case, Selena, Mr. Chris just returned from abroad, so you can accompany him around this afternoon. No, Eric. Okay, thank you Eric then. Chris pinched my arm, smiling as he accepted. After Eric left, my expression suddenly changed. I poked Chris with my arm, commanding, put me down. But he didn't let go of me. Selena, the floor is really cold. Don't be stubborn, let me carry you to put on shoes. Chris lifted me up and placed me on the sofa. He brought slippers and carefully put them on for me. Just as he finished putting them on for me and before he could get up, I lifted my foot and stepped on his shoulder. Chris's body stiffened. I smiled. What? Feeling humiliated, he squatted down, looking me in the eyes, smiling and shaking his head. Selena, do you like this? As long as you like it. I can be stepped on by you every day. Maybe you want to step on my face. It's okay, if that can make you feel better to step on my face. He looked calm, but there was unmistakable joy on his face. Being able to talk to me seemed like the greatest gift to him. I imagined him lying on the ground with me stepping on his face. I had to admit, it was a bit twisted. I withdrew my foot with disgust, kicking his chest. Crazy. Chris laughed like a fox, as long as Selena enjoys it. In the following days, I interacted with Chris in a lukewarm manner, not giving him the cold shoulder every day, but also not responding to his feelings. On the contrary, he seemed to like this kind of feeling more and more. His gaze towards me became increasingly intense and burning. On the day the conquest value reached 95, Chris proposed to me out of the blue, catching me off guard. I looked expressionless at Chris, who was half crouching on the ground, holding out a big diamond ring with a sincere look. I almost asked word by word through my teeth, "Are you insane?" Chris said, "Selena, I've been waiting for this proposal for 2 lifetimes. Do you really know it's 2 lifetimes? I mocked him, pointing to his hand holding the ring aloft. "Your hands have gouged my eyes and peeled my skin. Why do you think I would marry you? What are you?" Chris's smile slowly faded, and along with the smile, the blood on his face also disappeared. He seemed to never have this kind of sadness before. "Selena, I know it's my fault. I know, Selena, I'm sorry. I know I'm not qualified to ask for your love, or to hope to be with you, but Selena," his voice gradually lowered, "but Selena, it's too late." I furrowed my brows. "What do you mean?" Chris said, "I know you approached me for a mission, and once the mission is complete, you will leave, right?" I stayed silent. He was too smart to figure this out. Something I had already anticipated. "Why could you accept me last time, but not this time? I've already cleared all obstacles." I looked down on him. "You're overthinking it. The last time I had feelings for you it was only out of pity." Pity, pity. He chewed on those 2 words repeatedly, suddenly crawled to my feet, and tightly held my hand. He pleaded word by word, "If you want to feel pity, then do so to the end. Love me once more, and I will never let you down." I sneered, pulled my hand away. "It's too late." System, what's wrong, host? Are you ready? We are about to leave this dimension. Really? The system was excited and then hesitated. But host, since Chris proposed to you and was rejected by you, the conquest value hasn't increased for half a month. and he seems to have given up on you during this time. I didn't say anything, just stared at the white car in hot pursuit in the rearview mirror, slowly a smile creeping up my face. When I opened my eyes again, I was in a basement. 3 burly men surrounded me, glaring at me. What's the relationship between you and Chris? I said expressionlessly, no relationship. Before I finished, they slapped me across the face. He chases after you every day, saying there's no relationship. My face instantly swelled. I continued to taunt them with a smile. What's the matter? Afraid to mess with Chris and have to pick on me, a woman? You guys are really spineless. My words successfully provoked them. The 3 burly men vented their anger towards Chris on me with punches and kicks. One punch after another, one kick after another, until someone shouted, "Big brother, not good. Chris is coming with people." The leader of the burly men glared at me angrily. We may not be able to beat him, but he won't have it easy either. I want him to experience the feeling of having the woman he loves die by his own hands. After saying that, he ruthlessly stabbed a dagger into my chest. At the same time, the basement door was kicked open. Chris rushed in with his men. Gotta give it to him, he was forewarned. He brought a private doctor, but it was too late. My life was slipping away with every drop of blood. The private doctor shook his head in dismay. Chris carefully held my body. The usually calculating Chris cried like a child for the first time. He knelt beside me, desperately begging, "Selena, don't die. Tell me, how can I save you, Selena? You know what to do, right? Just tell me. I'm willing to do anything to save you." I struggled to open my eyelids and straight to the point said, "There is a way." Chris looked at me intently. He knew what I was talking about, knew what I wanted to reach the max affection level. As long as I succeeded in maxing out the affection, I could leave this dimension and wouldn't have to die with Selena's body. I was taking a chance. Chris knew it. He was almost out of tears, his expression terribly ugly. I knew. After a while, in a soft voice, he said. I squinted, looked up, and slowly revealed a smile as if victory was right in front of me. The next moment, the dagger in my chest was pulled out. Then, Chris ruthlessly stabbed it into his own chest. I coughed violently, blood pooling on the floor, but I couldn't believe it. I stared at Chris in disbelief and hoarsely asked, "Are you crazy? Why did you attempt suicide? As long as your affection level reaches 100 for me, I can leave this dimension. Why did you have to die?" "I'm not crazy, Selena. This is the best way." He reached out to touch me, his face contorted in anguish. "I can't bear for you to leave. And you can't bear for me to live. I have to die so our situation can be broken, right?" I looked at him in silence. Indeed, isn't unwavering love considered 100% affection? The moment Chris's hand touched my face, the system's voice resounded in my mind. Affection level maxed out. Please prepare to leave this dimension. 10-second countdown begins now. Chris, struggling to keep his eyes open, looked at me with great difficulty, as if trying to etch me into his memory. "Selena, my Selena, have you forgiven me?" My life points were rapidly recovering, but Chris's were rapidly depleting. I had enough strength to stand up, but I remained crouched, locking eyes with Chris. "Selena, do you have even the slightest reluctance to let me go?" Chris's gaze was beginning to blur. As he stared at me with wide eyes, he struggled to speak. "I will never, never forget the winter you saved me," and touched my head, saying, "Chris, from now on, I'm your family." Selena looked the most beautiful when wearing a white dress, just like the snow that year. "Unfortunately, Selena, we can't watch the snow together anymore." I couldn't bear to hear more. I lowered my head and asked, "Chris, stop with the nonsense." He smiled softly. I can still hear Selena's voice. Selena's voice, it's so nice to hear. At the end of the countdown, Chris suddenly widened his eyes and desperately tried to grab my clothes. Almost crying, he shouted, "I never regretted loving you in my life. Have you, Selena, ever loved me?" The countdown ended. A flash of white light passed before my eyes, and I returned to the fast-track dimension. Chris's voice echoed in my ears, hoarse and desperate. I looked down at the blood on my fingertips and coldly smiled. "I never loved you."